welcome to the deep dive. Our mission today is to embark on this really profound and honestly incredibly thorough exploration of a source text that just operates on a level of sophistication we rarely ever see.
Yeah, it really is in a league of its own.
Right. I mean, we are pulling apart translated excerpts from the third volume of a detailed commentary on Rumi's Masnavi, specifically this monumental commentary compiled by Tahir al-Mevlevi.
Which is just a massive undertaking, right?
Oh, totally. And to set the parameters right at the top here, we are not doing a dry literary review today.
No, definitely not.
We aren't doing a timeline of 13th century Persian poetry or whatever. What we have in front of us is, well, it's a masterclass in human psychology.
It's essentially a surgical toolkit, just hidden inside these ancient parables.
Exactly. And we're going to use this material to really understand the mechanics of the human ego. The deeply flawed nature of our own perception, and this is the big one, that brutal age-old tension between free will and destiny.
It's a remarkable framework, really, because, these parables were engineered to act as mirrors.
Mirrors how?
Well, they bypass our intellectual defenses by using imagery, like animals, prophets, emperors. They use all that to map out the exact reasons why we self-sabotage, why we feel unfulfilled despite having everything we need, and why the things we think are our strengths are actually often our fatal vulnerabilities.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
The deeper you look into this commentary, the more you realize it is diagnosing the modern condition with, honestly, terrifying precision.
Okay, let's unpack this immediately because the juxtaposition of the images we are going to explore today is just staggering.
It really is.
Over the course of this discussion, we're going to look at a fluffy, tiny rabbit that somehow manages to completely terrorize a massive, bloodthirsty lion.
Right.
We're going to look at a mosquito, a half-winged mosquito, mind you, taking down a tyrannical emperor.
It sounds absurd when you say it out loud.
It does. And we're also going to look at an unarmed man sleeping peacefully in the dirt whose mere presence causes heavily armed, battle-hardened warriors to tremble in absolute terror.
Which, that forces us to completely reevaluate our entire definition of power.
Totally.
Because we are conditioned to believe that power is mass, right? That power is aggression, that power is loud.
Yeah, the guy yelling the loudest in the room.
Exactly. But this material strips all of that away. It shows us that real power operates on an entirely different, often totally invisible frequency.
I love that.
Yeah.
So I want to jump straight into that first image, the rabbit and the lion.
It's a classic.
Because it just perfectly maps out the internal war we are all fighting every single day. So the scene opens in a jungle, and we have a lion.
But we really need to understand the psychology of this specific lion. He isn't just a hungry animal.
Right, he's the undisputed king. He literally brags about tearing oxen limb from limb and twisting the ears of male elephants.
Yeah, he expects total submission.
And right now, his daily tribute of food is late. So he is pacing. He's agitated. The text literally describes him as having become fire itself from his own wrath.
Right, so he is the embodiment of what Sufi psychology calls the nafs-i-amar.
The nafs-i-amar.
Yes. This is the commanding ego. It's the lowest, most base level of the human self.
The part that just wants what it wants.
Exactly. The nafs-i-amar operates on pure entitlement. It demands to be fed. It demands to be worshipped.
And when it doesn't get its way.
When it is denied or even slightly delayed, it doesn't just get annoyed, it turns destructive.
Wow.
It views the entire world as something that exists solely to serve its appetites. And, we all have this lion inside us.
I definitely do.
It's the voice that feels deeply personally offended when someone cuts us off in traffic or when an email isn't answered fast enough. It's the part of us that runs on pure reactive pride.
And walking right into the jaws of this raging fire is his food for the day. A rabbit.
It's just a little rabbit.
Now, picture someone walking into a high-stakes, incredibly intense police interrogation.
Okay, setting the scene.
The detectives are sweating, right? They are slamming folders on the metal table. They are trying to flood the room with pressure and panic.
Classic good cop, bad cop stuff.
Exactly. But the suspect just walks in, slumps into the chair, yawns, and asks for a glass of water. They are completely unbothered.
Because they know they're innocent.
Yes. Fundamentally and with absolute certainty, they know they are innocent. They don't need to match the detective's energy because they have the leverage of the truth.
That is a great analogy.
That is exactly how this rabbit approaches the lion. The rabbit isn't cowering. He isn't begging for his life.
He approaches fearlessly.
Fearlessly. And he actually looks grumpy, like he looks annoyed to even be there,
Which, of course, completely short-circuits the lion's programming.
because the lion expects fear.
Right, exactly. The lion is expecting the biological markers of prey,
Yeah.
shaking, pleading, submission.
And when he doesn't get it,
When the rabbit denies him that, it creates this momentary gap in the lion's rage. It introduces confusion. And that confusion is the rabbit's only window of opportunity, because the rabbit represents the Akemid.
Yucky mead. What's that?
It's the forward-thinking, strategic intellect. The intellect knows it cannot win a physical fistfight with the raw, brute force of the ego.
Right, like a rabbit can't punch a lion.
Exactly. If you try to just muscle your way through an addiction or muscle your way through deep-seated anger, the ego will tear you apart.
Because the ego is always stronger in a direct fight.
Always. The intellect has to use leverage. It has to outsmart the beast.
And the leverage the rabbit chooses is just brilliant. He doesn't apologize for being late. He doesn't offer, like, some pathetic excuse.
No, he goes on the offensive.
He walks up and says, look, I actually had a much fatter, much more beautiful rabbit with me today. It was a tribute meant for you, the King of Kings.
Flattery first.
Right. But on the way here, another lion jumped us. I told him, we belong to the king. You can't take this. And this other lion just laughed.
Oh, that's so smart.
He told the rabbit to be ashamed of even mentioning the king's name. He called the king a nobody. He stole this beautiful rabbit and said, if you have a problem with it, you can come deal with me directly.
It really is a masterclass in manipulation. I mean, the intellect is weaponizing the ego's own fatal flaw right against it.
It's pride.
Yes. The ego is obsessed with its own supremacy. So by introducing a rival, the rabbit completely overrides the lion's hunger with a much more powerful emotion.
Jealousy.
Exactly, jealousy. The lion completely forgets that he is starving. He forgets that the rabbit is standing right in front of him.
It's like he gets tunnel vision.
Totally. All he can process is that someone else is challenging his status.
It perfectly captures how blind we become when our pride is wounded. Like,
Yeah.
if you want to make someone stop thinking rationally, attack their status.
It works every time.
The rabbit baits the trap, and the lion steps right into it.
Yeah.
But the ultimate goal here isn't just to make the lion angry, is it?
No, not at all. The commentary breaks down this strategy. The goal of the intellect is to pull the commanding ego out of its comfortable seat of power.
Drag it out of its domain.
Right. Drag it away and throw it into the well of asceticism and self-discipline. The rabbit knows he has to guide the lion to a very specific location to neutralize him.
Because brute strength is entirely useless against a perfectly designed trap.
Exactly. And this moves us into a much broader law of the universe that the text explores. You know, the rabbit defeating the lion introduces this concept of the illusion of size.
The illusion of size.
Yeah, and the reality of unseen forces.
Yeah.
We are very visually dominant creatures, right?
Yeah. We trust what we see.
We assess threats and power based on mass, volume, and physical presence. But the architecture of reality doesn't actually respect those metrics.
The examples provided in the source to illustrate this are fascinating. Like, think about the physics of a river. A stream naturally carries a tiny piece of straw along its surface.
Makes perfect sense.
That makes sense to us. But how does that same element of water, over time, carve a canyon out of solid rock and move an entire mountain?
Right.
Or how does a single man, Moses, standing with nothing but a wooden staff, oversee the destruction of the entire heavily armored military complex of Pharaoh?
It defies logic.
And the mosquito. How does a tyrant like Nimrod, who commands empires and builds towers to challenge heaven, get killed by a half-winged mosquito that flies into his nose and splits his brain?
It forces us to recognize that physical size is merely a temporary vessel. The fundamental forces of the universe, or divine power, depending on the terminology you prefer, can embed profound lethal properties into the smallest and most fragile of things.
Give me a modern example of that.
Well, we see it in modern biology all the time. A human being can construct a leviathan of steel and glass, right? A skyscraper. We can hunt a whale, which is a creature of incomprehensible size with a tiny, specialized harpoon.
We're the apex predators.
Supposedly. Yet, that same human being at the absolute peak of their physical strength can be brought to their knees and killed by a microscopic virus.
Wow. Yeah, you can't even see it.
Exactly. A pathogen that cannot even be seen by the naked eye possesses the power to topple a giant. The size of the combatants is completely irrelevant. What matters is the specific nature of the inherent property.
Which means our entire threat assessment system is basically flawed.
Fundamentally flawed.
We walk through life constantly scanning the horizon for lions. We look for the massive, obvious
The
dangers.
big stuff.
Yeah, a financial collapse, a physical attack, a massive public failure. We brace ourselves for the big hits.
But we miss the small stuff.
Right. And the text lays out a psychological rule that is honestly terrifying if you really think about it. It says, if an enemy offers you candy, consider it poison.
Yes. If an enemy shows you kindness, consider it a trap.
Because the most dangerous threats do not announce themselves with a roar.
They adapt.
They adapt. And the commentary identifies the ultimate, most persistent enemy a human being will ever face.
And it isn't a rival kingdom or, like, a corporate competitor.
No. Is the ego residing right inside your own chest?
And the ego knows that if it comes at you like a roaring lion, when your intellect is on high alert, you will fight back.
You put your guard up.
You will deploy your discipline. So it changes tactics. It offers you candy.
Think about how this manifests in our daily routines. Like the ego whispers, you've worked really hard today. You deserve to skip the gym. Just relax.
It sounds just like self-care.
It does. Or it whispers, you don't need to apologize to your partner. They were the one who started the argument. Stand your ground. Maintain your boundaries.
It dresses up stubborn pride in the language of psychological health.
That is so true. It offers you the candy of immediate comfort, the candy of righteous indignation, the candy of isolation when you are feeling vulnerable.
But it is poison.
Absolute poison.
Oh, it is a trap designed to keep you stagnant, to keep you disconnected, and to keep the nafs, the ego, in control of your behavior.
Is the friendly enemy. It kills you softly. But here is where I hit a wall with this framework.
Okay, where's the wall?
If the intellect, our internal rabbit, is so highly strategic, and if we can sit here and clearly identify how the ego lays these traps with candy and fake self-care,
Right.
why do we still fall for it?
That's the big question.
I mean, why do incredibly brilliant people with massive intellectual capacity still ruin their marriages, destroy their careers, and self-sabotage? If the intellect is aware of the trap, why does it walk into it anyway?
That is the exact question the commentary anticipates. And the answer requires us to explore a concept that is deeply uncomfortable for the modern mind.
Okay, brace me.
It's the blinding power of destiny, which is known in this tradition as kaza.
Kaza.
Yes. The intellect is powerful, but it is not supreme. It has a ceiling.
And to explain this ceiling, the source brings in this brilliant parable about Prophet Suleiman, or Solomon.
A great story.
Solomon has the ability to speak to animals, right?
Mm.
And he has convened a massive assembly of all the birds.
And they aren't just there to shang out.
No, they're basically presenting their resumes. They want to be useful to his administration. It's not out of arrogance, but out of a desire to serve the king.
Right, they want to contribute.
So the hoopoe bird steps forward, and the hoopoe makes this incredible claim. He says, "My king, I possess a highly specialized talent.
He's pitching his stills.
When I am flying at extreme altitudes, high above the clouds, I have kind of X-ray vision. I can look down at the earth and see exactly where water is located deep underground.
That's a superpower.
I know the depth, I know the color, and I know if it springs from soil or solid rock. If you are taking your army on a desert campaign, you absolutely need me leading the way."
I mean, from a strategic standpoint, an aerial water diviner is arguably the most valuable asset a desert military could possess. It's a flawless pitch.
It is, but before Solomon can even respond, the crow steps up.
Uh-oh, the rival.
And the crow is burning with professional jealousy. The crow wants to dismantle the hoopoe's credibility immediately.
So what does he say?
He says, "My king, he is a total fraud. If he possesses this miraculous, all-seeing vision from the clouds, how is it mathematically possible that he couldn't see the tiny rudimentary trap hidden under a handful of dirt that caught him by the leg just last week?"
Oh, wow.
It's a devastating cross-examination. It's the ultimate gotcha.
Yeah, the crow points out a blatant contradiction. If your intellect is so sharp, why did you fail so miserably in your own life?
Exactly.
But the hoopoe doesn't crumble. His defense forms the philosophical core of this entire section.
He doesn't deny getting caught, does he?
He doesn't deny it at all. Instead, he looks at the assembly and says, when divine destiny arrives, knowledge goes to sleep. When the decree of destiny strikes, the sun and the moon are eclipsed.
Okay, I have to push back on this. Hard.
I figure you might.
Because this sounds like the ultimate cop-out. It sounds like pure, paralyzing fatalism.
It can definitely sound that way.
If destiny can just flip a switch and eclipse our intellect whenever it feels like it, then we are nothing but helpless puppets.
We have no agency.
Exactly. We have zero agency.
Yeah.
If I can do all the work, build up my intellect, learn all the traps of the ego, And then destiny just puts my brain to sleep and forces me to step in a trap anyway.
Yeah.
What is the point of trying?
Why do anything, right?
Yeah. Why read the commentary? Why try to be better if the game is rigged?
It's a really visceral reaction, and it's the exact reaction the modern, hyper-individualistic mind is supposed to have.
Well, good to know I'm normal.
You are. We worship autonomy, you know? The
Yeah.
idea that something can just override our intellect feels like a violation. But you have to look closer at what Kaza actually is in this framework.
Okay, what is it?
It is not a cruel puppet master playing games for entertainment. It is an overarching reality designed to enforce a critical boundary on human arrogance.
A boundary on arrogance.
Yes. The text brings in the story of Adam to illustrate this, and it's vital to understand the nuance
We're
here.
talking about Adam and the forbidden tree, right?
Yes. But consider Adam's status before the fall. According to this theological framework, Adam was not just a naive human.
He wasn't just some guy in a garden.
Exactly. He was taught the names, the hidden realities, and the precise nature of all things in the universe by God himself.
He had universal knowledge.
His intellect was so vast, so universally encompassing, that the angels were commanded to bow to his knowledge. He had an intellect that makes our greatest geniuses look like infants.
Okay, so he's the smartest being ever created.
Yet, when it came to one specific tree, he made a catastrophic error. Why?
Right. Why?
Did his brain suddenly malfunction? No. Destiny blinded him to the reality of that specific moment. He began to rationalize.
Wow.
He got confused about the nature of the prohibition. Was it a literal ban, or was it just a strong recommendation?
Right, he overthought it.
Maybe eating from it would actually elevate him further. He tried to intellectualize his way around a divine boundary, and he fell.
But again, if destiny deliberately blinded him, how is it fair that he took the fall for it? It still feels like a setup.
It feels like a setup if you believe the goal of human existence is to be perfectly autonomous and never make a mistake. But the commentary argues that the goal of existence is to understand your relationship to the divine. If you rely solely on your intellect, if you never fail, if you can foresee every trap and outsmart every enemy, what happens?
You get arrogant.
You will inevitably begin to think that you are a god. You will believe that you control all variables in the universe. Kaza exists to strip away that delusion.
So it forces failure.
Destiny plunges you into darkness and forces your intellect to fail, not to destroy you, but to break your arrogance. The intellect alone cannot save you.
So what's the right response when we fail?
When your brilliant plans collapse, when you step in the trap despite all your careful calculations, the appropriate response is not anger at a rigged game.
It's not. Why me?
No, the response is to drop the illusion of total control. You embrace humility. You surrender. And the beautiful promise embedded in this text is that the exact same destiny that throws you into the terrifying darkness of the trap will, once your arrogance is broken, grab your hand and pull you into the light of morning. It is a necessary mechanism for spiritual evolution.
So the failure isn't a punishment, it's an intervention.
Precisely.
It's the universe stepping in before we completely consume ourselves with our own brilliance.
It keeps the rabbit from turning into another lion.
Oh, that is so good.
Yeah,
It keeps the rabbit from turning into a lion. That reframes the entire concept of agency.
it really does.
It means we do the work, we train the intellect, but we hold the outcome with open hands. So carrying that humility, let's return to the jungle.
Back to our rabbit and lion.
Right. The rabbit has successfully baited the lion. They are walking together, the tiny rabbit leading this massive, furious beast to the location of the supposed rival.
And they arrive at a well.
They arrive at a well. And here is where the rabbit executes the physical climax of his psychological operation. As they get close to the well, the rabbit suddenly hits the brakes.
He just stops.
He stops walking. He starts to physically shiver. He looks up at the lion and says, "I can't go any closer. Look at me. My color has completely drained from my face. My heart is pounding out of my chest. I am paralyzed with terror. He is in there."
Think about the biological intelligence of this lie. The text highlights that the face's color is an informer of the heart's state.
It's physical proof.
The rabbit isn't just telling a story, he is manifesting the physiological symptoms of absolute panic. By weaponizing his own physical vulnerability, he completely bypasses any remaining skepticism the lion might have had.
Because the lion trusts what he sees.
The lion sees the physical evidence of fear and assumes the threat inside the well must be real and formidable.
And the lion, whose ego is now inflamed to the point of blindness, may be experiencing his own moment of kaza, where his basic survival instincts are eclipsed by pride, puffs up his chest.
He's gonna show off.
He says, "Stand behind me. I will protect you. Let's see who dares to steal from me." He picks the rabbit up in his massive arms, walks to the very edge of the well, and stares down into the water.
And what does he see?
He sees the reflection of a massive lion holding a fat rabbit. The lion doesn't understand the concept of a mirror. He doesn't recognize himself.
He thinks it's the other guy.
He believes he is looking directly at his rival, holding his stolen tribute. He's consumed by rage, lets out a deafening roar, drops his rabbit, and leaps into the well to annihilate his enemy. And in doing so, he drowns. He destroys himself.
The architecture of this trap is flawless because the victim provides all the lethal force.
He literally kills himself.
But the commentary does not let us just enjoy this as a clever fable. It uses this moment to introduce one of the most profound, unsettling psychological truths in the entire text.
Unsettling is the right word.
It pivots to the famous saying, "The believer is the mirror of the believer." When the lion looked down into the dark water of that well, he did not see an external enemy.
He saw himself.
He saw his own unchecked aggression, his own monstrous wrath, his own insatiable greed staring back at him, and he hated it so much that he tried to kill it.
He went to war with his own reflection.
Yes. And the commentary turns the mirror directly onto the reader. It warns us. The faults you see in others are your own reflection.
That's a hard pill to swallow.
It uses a brilliant metaphor. If you hold a piece of blue glass right up against your eyes, the entire world appears blue. The sky is blue, the trees are blue, the people are blue.
And you think the world is ruined.
You might scream in rage that the world has been ruined by this terrible blue color, completely ignorant of the fact that the tint is entirely in your own vision. The lion's ego was so massive, so all-consuming, that he projected it onto the flat surface of the water and assumed it was an external threat.
If you are listening to this right now, I want you to apply this directly to your life, because this is where the text demands accountability.
Let's do it.
Think about the specific person who irritates you the most. Maybe it's a colleague at work, a family member, or even a public figure. What is the specific trait that drives you absolutely crazy?
Is it their relentless need to micromanage everything?
Is it their deep-seated hypocrisy? Is it their desperate need for validation? The commentary is suggesting something highly uncomfortable.
Very uncomfortable.
It suggests that the intense, visceral hatred or annoyance you feel toward that specific trait in them is actually a reaction to your own internal state. You are shadowboxing with your own projection.
Exactly.
If you are not secretly wrestling with a desire to control everything, a micromanager wouldn't trigger you so violently. You would just view them objectively as inefficient. We are triggered by the things we refuse to acknowledge within our own nafs.
This maps perfectly onto the concept of shadow projection in modern analytical psychology.
Oh, like Carl Jung.
Yes. We take the unacceptable parts of our own ego, the flaws we refuse to integrate or take responsibility for, and we project them onto the people around us.
We make them the bad guy.
We convince ourselves that we are noble warriors fighting against rival lions in our workplace or our relationships, when in reality we are just screaming into a well of our own making.
And the consequence of that projection is always self-destruction. The lion digging a pit for his enemy falls into it himself.
It's inevitable.
The text takes this concept of the oppressor digging their own grave and expands it into the physics of cosmic justice, or karma. It tells us that oppression is structurally unsustainable.
And to anchor this in a scale larger than an individual ego, the source dives into a massive historical and mythic event from the year the Prophet Muhammad was born.
The story of Abraha's elephant army.
Yes, this is a story about the arrogance of imperial power. Abraha was a powerful, tyrannical ruler in Yemen.
He had vast wealth, right?
He utilized that wealth to build a magnificent, towering cathedral, and his goal was to force all of Arabia to abandon their traditional pilgrimage to the Kaaba in Mecca and worship at his cathedral instead.
It was an attempt to monopolize spiritual and economic power.
Exactly. But when the Arabs refused, and a nomadic tribesman actually defiled the cathedral, Abraha's ego was ignited just like the lion's.
He wanted revenge.
He didn't just want to punish the culprit, he wanted total annihilation. He gathered an overwhelming, technologically superior army, spearheaded by literal war elephants, and marched across the desert to crush Mecca into the sand.
To put this in perspective, this is like a modern superpower bringing stealth bombers and tanks to fight a village of farmers.
It was a slaughter waiting to happen.
The Meccans had absolutely zero conventional military hope. You can't fight elephants with swords. The leader of the Meccans at the time, Abdul Muttalib, assessed the situation and did something radical.
He didn't mount a defense.
He told his people to evacuate the city and hide in the mountains. He actually went to meet Abraha, but not to negotiate a surrender of the city. He went to ask for the return of his personal camels that Abraha's army had confiscated.
Which is just wild.
Abraha was shocked and insulted. He said, "I'm here to destroy your holy sanctuary, and you are asking about camels."
And Abdul Muttalib's response is amazing.
It's a masterclass in the surrender we talked about earlier. He said, "I am the lord of my camels, so I protect them. But the house, the Kaaba, has its own lord, and he will protect it."
He just handed it over.
He completely withdrew his own ego from the equation and handed the defense over to a higher power.
He recognized that fighting Abraha on Abraha's terms, mass and muscle, was impossible. And what follows is a demonstration of how the universe responds to unchecked tyranny.
What happens next is cinematic.
As this invincible army prepares to charge into the Valley of Mecca, the lead elephant, a massive beast named Mahmud, simply kneels down.
It just sits.
It refuses to move forward. No matter how much they beat it, it won't take a step toward the Kaaba. And then the sky darkens.
The storm.
But it's not a storm. The sky is blotted out by massive flocks of tiny birds known as the obable birds.
Tiny birds, not dragons.
These aren't eagles or birds of prey. They are small birds, and in their beaks and claws, they carry tiny clay stones. Pebbles no bigger than a chickpea. They swarm over the massive army and begin dropping these tiny stones.
And this is where the physics become terrifying. I compare this to the mechanics of a bullet.
How so?
If I stand in front of you and simply toss a lead bullet at your chest, it will just bounce off. It might sting, but it won't hurt you.
Right.
A bullet only becomes lethal because of the velocity generated by the gunpowder, the rifling of the barrel, and the propulsion. It's not the size of the object, it's the force behind it.
That makes total sense.
The text describes these tiny clay pebbles dropped from the heavens with divine velocity, gaining lethal, armor-piercing force. They punched right through the iron helmets, the shields, the thick hides of the elephants, and the bodies of the soldiers. This massive, invincible army was completely decimated by pebbles.
It forces us to return to the illusion of size. But the commentary extracts a profound law of cosmic justice from this event. It introduces the concept of the Gulgul, yes, which translates to a massive uproar or reverberation in the heavens. The text states that when a weak, oppressed person is bitten, when someone without power cries out in genuine pain against an oppressor, that sound doesn't just dissipate in the air.
It echoes.
It causes a gulgul in the architecture of reality. The text issues a highly practical warning. If you bite a weak person, you will inevitably get a severe toothache.
I love that phrasing.
The universe possesses an automatic, built-in mechanism where extreme tyranny triggers its own microscopic, devastating antidote.
So the oppressor's reliance on brute force is what makes them vulnerable.
Exactly. Abraha relied on the massive size of his elephants. He was looking at the horizon for an opposing army. He wasn't looking up at tiny birds.
Wasn't looking for pebbles.
The oppressor is always blind to the subtle, unseen forces of justice because their ego convinces them that only things matching their own size are dangerous. A system built on cruelty will always be dismantled by the smallest, most unexpected variable.
Okay, so the oppressor is destroyed by pebbles, the lion drowns himself in the well, the intellect wins, our rabbit has survived.
He did.
And the text provides this gorgeous, vivid imagery of the rabbit running back through the jungle to tell the other animals they are free. He is dancing. He is practically floating.
Pure relief.
The commentary compares his joy to the arrival of spring. It's like green leaves bursting out of the dark, frozen prison of the winter soil, dancing in the warm wind, praising the deep roots that fed them. It is a moment of pure, unadulterated triumph. The ego is dead.
It is a beautiful celebration, but this is exactly where the expert commentary steps in and delivers a massive, sobering blow.
Buzzkill.
Total buzzkill. It interrupts the celebration to issue a critical warning. We cannot afford to become arrogant about temporary victory.
The victory over the lion.
Yes. The specific lion in the jungle might be dead, yes. But the concept of the ego, the nafs, is not dead. It merely changes form.
Oh, no.
The text escalates the metaphor. It stops comparing the ego to an animal and begins comparing it to hell itself.
And hell isn't something you outsmart once and cross off your to-do list.
No, hell is structural. The text introduces this terrifying concept of the ego as an insatiable cosmic dragon.
A dragon now.
It draws on a very specific phrase from scriptural tradition, Hal min mazid.
Hal min mazid.
This translates to, are there more? The commentary says you could take 7 oceans and pour them into the mouth of the ego, and it would not extinguish the fire.
Of oceans.
The ego will swallow the entire world, digest it, and immediately scream out, "How min mazid? Is there more?"
That phrase, how min mazid, is chilling. And it is so relentlessly applicable to the structure of modern life.
It really is.
We have built an entire global culture around feeding this dragon. Think about how this manifests in your daily routine. It's the endless dopamine loop of social media.
Oh, absolutely.
You scroll through 100 videos, you consume 1,000 images, you ingest all this information, and at the end of it, you aren't satisfied. Your brain is just hovering over the screen screaming, is there more? Refresh the feed, is there more?
It infects every layer of our ambition.
Completely. You see it in consumerism and career trajectories. You hustle for years to buy the car, to get the house, to secure the promotion.
You reach the goal.
You finally achieve the thing you thought would bring you peace, and the satisfaction lasts for, what, 10 minutes? A day?
If you're lucky.
And then the emptiness returns, and the ego asks, okay, what's next? Is there more? It is an unquenchable fire. It eats your achievements, it eats your relationships, it eats your peace of mind.
It is the ultimate tragedy of the human condition when left to its own devices. You cannot satisfy the ego by feeding it. Feeding it only expands its capacity.
The dragon just gets larger.
The dragon just gets larger and hungrier. So how do you stop a fire that burns hotter the more fuel you give it?
You can't use fuel.
Exactly. The intellect, the rabbit, can trick the ego in specific situations. It can help you break a bad habit or navigate a toxic relationship. But the intellect cannot extinguish the fundamental nature of the nafs.
So what can?
The text states that only the foot of the Almighty can step on this fire and silence it.
Okay, we need to decode that. The foot of the Almighty. What does that actually mean in practice? It sounds abstract.
In Sufi terminology, this metaphor points to the presence of a perfected human, an insani kamil.
Insani Camille.
But on a broader psychological level, it represents a state of absolute spiritual alignment and divine presence. You cannot fight the fire of the ego with the fuel of logic.
You can't argue with it.
You cannot argue the dragon into feeling satisfied. You can only extinguish it by shifting your paradigm entirely. It requires a grounding presence, an encounter with a truth so massive and undeniable that it literally steps on the fire and starves it of oxygen.
Wow.
The intellect is a tool for survival, but higher spiritual consciousness is the only mechanism for peace.
Which means we have to move beyond just being clever. We need a fundamental transformation of our state. And that realization transitions us seamlessly into a totally different landscape within our source text. We leave the jungle parables behind, and we enter a story about actual historical figures.
A very famous historical story.
The scene shifts to Medina, the heart of the expanding Islamic Empire. A Roman envoy arrives in the city. Now, we have to understand the envoy's mindset. He comes from Rome, the epicenter of imperial power.
He's used to a certain aesthetic.
His brain associates authority with marble columns, soaring towers, silk tapestries, and heavily armed guards.
That's what power looks like to him.
He walks into Medina looking for the palace of Caliph Umar, the man who rules this massive empire. He asks the locals, where is the caliph's palace? Where is the center of power?
And the answer they give him.
The locals give him an answer that completely breaks his paradigm. They tell him he has no physical palace. His palace is his illuminated soul.
Which, to a Roman diplomat, sounds like absolute nonsense. It sounds like a poetic excuse for poverty.
Right. He probably thinks they're hiding something. So the envoy goes looking for him. And where does he find the most powerful man in the known world?
Where is he?
He finds Umar sleeping on the bare, hot sand under the sparse shade of a single date palm tree.
No guard.
He has no guards. He has no silk pillows. He is wearing a rough, patched cloak. He is completely physically vulnerable. But here is the critical moment. The envoy, who the text explicitly points out, is a battle-hardened warrior. A man who stood on bloody battlefields, who has faced down lions and tigers without ever flinching, looks at this unarmed man sleeking in the dirt, and he begins to tremble.
He loses it.
His knees shake. He is overcome by a violent, crushing terror.
It is a phenomenal psychological study of the aura of authenticity. The text explains this reaction with a simple rule. Whoever fears God, everything fears them.
That's profound.
The envoy is experiencing a massive, irreconcilable clash of opposites. His physical eyes are telling him one thing, but his deeper intuition is screaming something else.
Because it doesn't compute.
Right. He is looking at a man who is entirely stripped of external armor, yet emanates an aura of absolute invincibility. He is feeling a terrifying mixture of profound love and profound awe simultaneously.
But I want to dig into how that aura works. Why does someone sleeping in the dirt command more fear than a king on a throne with a sword? Is it just a supernatural vibe?
It is much deeper than a vibe. It is the weight of integrity. The text makes a sharp distinction between the physical eye and the spiritual eye.
Right.
The physical eye is clouded by the hair of illusion. It is obsessed with mass, wealth, and material indicators of power. It only sees a poor man in a rough cloak.
The surface level.
But the spiritual eye, even if the envoy hasn't trained his, perceives the underlying reality. It sees a towering spiritual monarch.
It sees the truth.
When someone derives their power from external things, money, titles, armies, their power is fragile. It can be taken away. But when someone's internal reality is so fiercely aligned with the divine, when their nafs is completely subjugated, their very presence radiates a crushing density of truth.
So the sword doesn't matter.
The envoy's physical courage is utterly useless here because he is encountering a power that operates on a frequency his sword cannot touch.
I love the detail of what happens next. The envoy is standing there, physically shaking, probably expecting lightning to strike or the earth to open up.
He's terrified.
Umar wakes up, he opens his eyes, sees this terrified, heavily armed Roman standing over him, and he doesn't flinch.
Just completely calm.
The very first thing Umar does is offer a greeting of peace. The envoy manages to respond, and then they sit down and start talking. The commentary points out that this interaction is based on a foundational rule from the Prophet. First salam, then kalam.
Greetings first, then conversation.
Exactly.
It seems like a minor etiquette rule, but in this context, it is a masterstroke of psychological grounding. Salam literally translates to peace.
Right.
By offering peace before asking a single question, Umar instantly takes control of the energetic space. It demonstrates supreme order and a complete absence of fear.
He's not defensive at all.
He isn't startled by a foreign warrior looming over him. He is perfectly centered.
Right.
By saying salam, he de-escalates the envoy's terror and establishes a perimeter of safety. He builds a bridge of human connection before any intellectual or political dialogue can occur.
It is the ultimate power move, but it is executed out of pure humility. So the tension breaks, they sit down in the dirt, and the diplomat essentially turns into a seeker.
He wants to know the secret.
He has just witnessed a form of power he never knew existed, and he desperately wants to understand the mechanics of it. He asks Umar an incredibly deep philosophical question.
What does he ask?
He asks, how does the limitless, infinite, eternal soul end up trapped inside the tiny, fragile biological cage of the human body? How do you stuff the infinite into the finite?
It is the core question of human existence. And Umar's answer relies on a concept called Efsun, which translates to an enchantment or a divine spell. He explains to the envoy that God speaks an enchantment to the void of nothingness and that nothingness immediately races into existence.
Like a command.
The universe, in this framework, is not a cold mechanical clock ticking away in the dark. It is driven by the constant, active, living word of the divine.
The poetic imagery the text uses here to describe this enchantment is just stunning.
It really is beautiful.
This is God whispers to the rose, and it blushes and blooms. He whispers a secret to a piece of rock buried deep in the dark earth, and it compresses and turns into a glowing ruby.
Yeah.
He whispers a terrifying reality to the sun, and the sun eclipses in awe.
Exactly. Every mechanism in nature is a response to this divine dialogue. The soul didn't just accidentally slip into the body.
Or was it a mistake?
The soul was vast and free, but it entered the biological cage of the body because it was commanded to by this enchantment. And it will remain in that cage until another command releases it.
Wow.
Umar is teaching the envoy that every single movement in the universe, from the orbit of planets to the imprisonment of consciousness in flesh, is part of a deliberate, highly orchestrated divine conversation.
And understanding that conversation leads us to a breakdown of two very important, very practical Sufi concepts mentioned in the text, hal and makam, states and stations.
Yes, this is crucial.
I want us to spend some time unpacking these because I think anyone who has ever tried to improve themselves, whether through meditation, therapy, or just trying to be a more patient person, will relate to this struggle on a visceral level.
It is arguably the most practical psychological tool in the text. Let's start with hal, which translates to a state. A state is a temporary spiritual feeling, an insight, or a sudden rush of clarity.
Like an epiphany.
Yes. The text uses a beautiful metaphor. Experiencing a hal is like seeing a beautiful bride briefly lift her veil.
You just get a glimpse.
It's a flash of profound understanding. It's a moment where the ego goes entirely quiet, you feel deeply connected to the fabric of the universe, and all your anxieties suddenly make sense or disappear entirely. Everyone, regardless of their background, experiences these states.
Right. Like you go on a weekend retreat or you're on a long hike in the mountains watching the sunset.
Exactly.
And for 10 straight minutes, you are totally at peace. You look at your life and think, I figured it out. I'm never going to let petty things bother me again. I am aligned. You're in the state.
You are in the how.
And then you drive back to the city, you get out of your car, you drop your keys in a muddy puddle, and you immediately lose your mind.
Immediately.
You start cursing, your heart rate spikes, and all that peace completely evaporates. The veil drops.
That is the perfect illustration of a how. It is a gift, but it is fleeting. It cannot withstand the friction of daily life.
So what's the alternative?
Makam, which translates to a station. To continue the text metaphor, a station is not just catching a glimpse of the bride. It is moving into the house and living with the bride permanently.
Oh, that's much harder.
It is the grueling, relentless process of taking that temporary, fragile state of clarity and forging it into a permanent, unshakable psychological reality.
But how do we actually do that? How do we move from a state to a station? Because chasing those fleeting moments of peace just feels exhausting after a while.
It is exhausting because people try to stabilize the state using the intellect alone. Moving to a station requires rigorous, unglamorous discipline.
So it's work.
It means when the state fades and you drop your keys in the puddle, you don't surrender to the rage. You observe the naffs flaring up, you recognize the dragon asking for more anger, and you actively refuse to feed it.
You starve the drag.
You endure the discomfort of not reacting. Umar, sleeping on the sand without a shred of fear. That is a makam. That is a station. He didn't just visit the concept of peace during a meditation session. He did the brutal internal work to live there permanently. His nervous system is entirely rewired by his spiritual alignment.
So if we want to reach that station, if we want to actually silence the dragon of the ego and navigate the blinding, sometimes terrifying power of destiny, what is the ultimate choice we have to make?
It comes down to one fundamental choice.
The text brings this entire massive journey to a close by returning to the comparison between Adam and Satan. When both of these entities faced the overwhelming, eclipsing power of destiny, and both of them made a critical mistake, their reactions to their failure were fundamentally diametrically opposed.
And this difference forms the absolute crux of the entire philosophical and psychological framework we've been discussing.
How so?
When Satan made his mistake, when he refused to bow and disobeyed the divine command, what was his response? He spoke to God and said, "Because you led me astray."
You blamed God?
He looked at the vast architecture of destiny and used it as an excuse. He blamed the system. He blamed the creator. He fundamentally refused to take any ownership of his own action.
He played the ultimate victim. He pointed at the trap and said, you put that there, so it's your fault I stepped in it.
Yes, he weaponized the concept of destiny to protect his ego.
But Adam.
But when Adam made his mistake, even though he too was operating under the immense blinding weight of Kaza, even though his intellect had been put to sleep so he would fail, he did not blame the system.
What did he say?
When confronted with his failure, Adam said, "We have wronged ourselves." He took absolute, total, crushing responsibility for his flaw. He didn't blame the snake, he didn't blame the tree, and he certainly didn't blame destiny.
And that right there is the key to the entire toolkit.
It is the only way out.
The intellect's greatest trick isn't outsmarting a lion in the jungle. It isn't giving the perfect excuse. The intellect's greatest, most vital function is taking total ownership of its own reflection.
Yes.
If you look into the well, see an ugly, raging monster, and blame the mirror for the image, you are adopting the psychology of Satan in this metaphor. You will stay trapped in the cycle of projection forever.
You'll just keep fighting the mirror.
But if you look into the well, see the monster, and recognize that the flaw belongs entirely to you, you are adopting the psychology of Adam.
Taking that agonizing responsibility is the very first step out of the dark well. It is the only mechanism that stops you from shadowboxing with your own projections.
It's the only way to heal.
It is the exact, rigorous work required to stop chasing fleeting states and actually begin the long journey toward a permanent spiritual station.
What an incredible, sweeping journey this source material has taken us on today.
It covers so much ground.
We started with a calculated biological trickery of a tiny, grumpy rabbit outsmarting a raging lion. We analyzed the terrifying, eclipsing power of destiny that puts the greatest intellects to sleep just to teach them humility.
We talked about the blue glass.
We've been challenged to look through the blue glass of our own psychological projections. We've stared down the throat of the insatiable, fire-breathing dragon of our ego, screaming for more, more, more.
And finally,
We sat in the hot dust with a spiritual monarch who needed no marble palace because his soul was entirely illuminated.
it is a breathtakingly comprehensive map of the human experience.
Yeah.
And the true genius of Tyrell Levy's commentary is how deeply interconnected all these concepts are.
They all fit together.
You cannot defeat the lion of anger without the rabbit of the intellect. But the rabbit alone cannot slay the eternal dragon of the ego. You need the humility of Adam and the grounding presence of a true spiritual station.
If you are listening to this right now, as you unplug and go back to the friction of your daily life, I want you to remember that fighting the ego with logic alone is like trying to move a mountain with a sewing needle.
It's just not going to work.
It requires so much more than just being smart. It requires radical, uncomfortable honesty. It requires taking total ownership of your mistakes, even when it feels unfair.
And surrender.
And sometimes it requires surrendering to the destiny that throws you into the dark, trusting completely that it will eventually pull you into the light.
If there is one final lingering thought we can leave you with today, inspired by the depths of this ancient commentary, it is this.
Let's hear it.
Think about the biggest obstacle, the most frustrating barrier, or the most infuriating enemy you are fighting in your life right now. Look very closely at them. If this text is right and the world is truly nothing but a mirror, what part of yourself are you actually at war with?
Wow. Something heavy to mull over the next time you find yourself getting annoyed. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the source material. We'll catch you next time.